spirit. We must be a team.
Business is war. It's dog eat dog, rat eat rat.
You gotta have a problem that you want to solve.
Hi, I'm William Bryant, and for this excerpt, I'm going to talk a little bit about value chain. Since in strategy decisions, value chain becomes important, but also, like I mentioned, when I was talking about the foundational strategy, all of your data comes from all of your processes in your value chain, as well as all of the applications. Now, one of the things you're going to notice if you've ever done any IT type, project works, say for example you're updating your ERP system, the project management kind of goes in the fashion of creating process maps. Okay, now I think it's a big benefit for a company to have process maps. Now, process maps aren't just the activities that occur within the different areas of the value chain, but also individuals, primarily roles, responsibilities, titles, that kind of thing. And of course, then the applications and the steps of what actually gets accomplished with each piece of the process within that segment of the value chain before it gets passed along. Of course, IT does this because the fact that they're concerned with, who's going to be using what and what they need access to. That's a huge portion. I like to look at it from the perspective that, okay, what data is coming from where, who's doing what steps, what those steps involved, and what the applications handle, because then you can say, oh, well, we can maybe automate this step of the process. And we're going to collect this much data. Where is this data coming from? Where is it being, sent to? How is it being centrally managed? And all those kinds of things. So really, the value chain mapping kind of complements the entire data lifecycle mapping. And that's kind of the way I like to view it, because it's a multi-tiered intertwining of IT as a core competency within the rest of the areas of your value chain. And for those of you who don't really know what value chain is, very high level, there are a couple different presentations, but you have your primary activities of the value chain, which is the inbound logistics portion, whatever you're getting for inventory, whether that be materials or actual products, and then the operations, which all go into creating that saleable product or service that you are going to actually make profits from for your business. Then of course you have your outbound logistics. This is more prevalent in e-commerce or sales, retail sales type business, but also manufacturing. Same thing. You make a finished good, off it goes to somebody else. Then of course you have sales and marketing. And then customer service is kind of the tail end on that primary activity chain. So then you're probably wondering, oh, well, where's everything else in a corporation? And then those are in what are the secondary activities, which would be HR, IT, infrastructure, things like that. And so really the primary activity is going to be just what does it take for us to create our product, sell the product, and make sure the customers are happy with the product. Everything else is a supporting activity that goes into it. And so when you're assessing the value chain, of course you look at that. And I do have images of this on my site if you'd like to go and look at my strategic management pamphlet, my PDF that I put together. All of these nice diagrams are on there, but you can also look at value chain and find the diagrams everywhere. And like I said, some are going to be more detailed than others, but from a very high level, that's what it is. And so you can make the value chain however you want, but it helps because you get the processes, the applications, and the data. But then beyond that, how do these applications integrate in such a way where we can create some kind of aligned automated process. And automation isn't integration, okay? Integration is like a secondary step. You could automate each individual piece of the value chain and still not have integration, still have considerable manual steps. Integration, I kind of use the example, AP systems for, say, requisitions and ordering versus your accounting system. Now, sometimes depending on the ERP system you have and the number of other add-ons that you have, you may have a system that kind of tries to put all of these things together for you already. But essentially what it is that you do have, of course, your requisitions that have to be approved. They go into purchase orders. And then the purchase orders send off that order for whatever you need to have shipped in. Then you do have the invoicing or the bill that comes from whoever you ordered them from. And typically you have to go through 2-way or 3-way reconciliation on your AP to make sure that, yes, we have this specific order, we've got this specific invoice, and then we've actually received whatever it is that we ordered. And there are, layers of complexity. Did you receive the entire shipment? Was it a partial shipment, partial payment? Did you receive the goods and not get invoiced? Things like that, right? And those are different accounting accounts that you'd have on your ledger. But for the most part, you're really just worried about, hey, we ordered something. Did we get invoiced? Did we receive it, right? So, of course, from the AP, that can help you with all of that reconciliation and really just kind of give you the ones, hey, we didn't receive anything from this, right? It's kind of like managed by exception, the ones that you didn't get to reconcile for whatever reason, and those are the ones you manually look at. Everything else is kind of an automated process. But maybe you even include, if you have machine learning system in there, you get to the point where you're actually allowing it to do the payments for you. And, of course, when you do machine learning, there are different levels of automation too. But, just say, for example, it does do the payments for you. So integration would then be, say, with the accounting system, does it actually make the entries for you within the accounting system? Because when you make a payment, obviously that has to, come from the cash account. And when you do so, you have to make adjustments to the accounts payable account. And, of course, additions to the inventory account. And so does it do those entries for you in addition to tracking all of the reconciliation? Because then if it does, those two systems then talk to each other, and then all you do is a quick audit. Otherwise, you're actually trying to do tallies and then do entries into the system. But that's an integrated system versus if you just had two systems doing two separate work processes. So hopefully that kind of makes a little bit of sense. The ERPs obviously have gotten really sophisticated, but for the larger companies, it's still, there are only a handful of larger, really large mega companies, you're doing over $1 billion revenues and what have you. And of course they can afford those systems. Most of the companies, I forget what the percentage is, but they're under 10 million in revenues. Well, can you afford these huge systems? Well, maybe some of them can do, the basic NetSuite package for, financial necessity, I think is their baseline. Or, something like that, QuickBooks Enterprise or what have you, goes along with that. And so you've got other options that come along that handle these different pieces. And a really big thing now is to look up and find out if it's got an API connection, or you can go through a different provider that specializes in API connections to do that for you and make those, links. For example, there are, whether it's basic QuickBooks or Xero, they've got a few other accounting systems, but these base ones all connect into, say, your bank account, but then they can integrate into your CRM system. There's, different types of CRM systems that aren't the big ones that can all talk to each other and integrate into your accounting platform and help with which a lot of them help with your invoicing now as well. And so that's kind of the big question is we've got these processes, we've got our value chain, we've got our mapping. And so we know what data is coming from where. We've got our applications. Now we ask, do these applications talk to each other so we can actually make use of an integration in addition to doing the entire data life cycle so that we can then use that to create better reporting, modeling, forecasting, budgeting, and so on. And then if you've kind of listened to the foundation strategy video, then you get a better idea of what I'm talking about there. But understanding that piece just kind of is overlooked, I think, sometimes as busy work. But it helps as training material. When you do software upgrades or IT development, it does help because you've already got it done. If you are ever going into an acquisition situation, whether you're being acquired or whether you're looking to acquire somebody else, it's also really useful because it helps with post-acquisition integration. And so I don't really think it's necessarily a complete waste of time to do a piece by piece and have somewhere stored in a central SharePoint folder or something that has all of the processes available and what is entailed in the processes, and you go through kind of like an annual update of it so that you have it as a reference section whenever you need it. Because let's face it, your organization is processes. That's what it's made up of, and it's really good to know, as granular as you can get, what is going on and what is being used in all of these processes and how they're intertwining and what is that next step of the handoff and who's utilizing what data where. Obviously, if you think about that, that also helps with who needs access to what data to do what modeling for different metrics, when you're looking at the performance of the organization as a whole. So just a brief excerpt there on value chain and kind of value chain analysis and the benefits internally, but when you start to get it aligned, that is that one additional step that you find in strategic planning, strategic management, that alignment is a differentiation that creates a competitive advantage. So on the one hand, you can get the IT from a data-driven perspective as a more competitive advantage, but in tracking and mapping that with the value chain, the applications, and the integratability, you also get kind of a second level where you then have an aligned set of activities. And that there also gives you a little bit more of an edge, a little bit more of a differentiation. And it's not even really focusing on the product yet. We're just looking at operations, measuring, and evaluation. And so, you're really building the foundation, which is why I call it that, of your organization by doing that. So, thank you.